I was going to show you around the garden today. I'm starting with this little tomato plant. Actually, there's two of them in a pot I put on the back deck. They were the last two tomatoes in the greenhouse. We didn't really have anywhere to put them, and I hated to throw them away, so I just thought I'd put them in a pot and see what happened. I'll start with this little bed. You can see we put a cattle panel here. We've got one. On this end, we built a little small bed. You can see we have some melons. This is like Edisto melons, kind of like a cantaloupe. And then on this end, I have some hearts of gold. They're kind of puny. The Edisto seem to be doing better, but hopefully they'll all come along. Then the main purpose of this cattle panel right here was these two little grapevines that we got this year. There's one on each end. This is Concord grapes. This one's really growing. It's almost reached the bottom of the panel. The other one is more puny, but it'll catch up, I think. Then behind the cattle panels, you can see this is the terraced bed we built. Remember, we planted it to put the blackberries in, and we did, but since I knew they wouldn't do very well this year, we also planted some other stuff. I think I have 3 candy roasters and a watermelon. The candy roaster down there on the end, it's produced maybe 3 or 4 little candy roasters, but the ends of them have all rotted and then they fell off. So if you know what that's about, please let me know. This is the blackberry that I already had, the tame one that I moved from a different place in the yard, so you can see it's doing better than the other ones are still really small. This is a view of the backyard. Seems like we're growing more and more things back here. We've pretty much run out of room is what we've done. This first little bed is a herb bed that Chitter has took over. So she's got some calendula, a pretty little nasturtium here in the front. She's got basil, some mint, some oregano back there in the back, and some sage. This is valerian. This is what we removed out of the asparagus bed. It's not blooming now, but it was. It has the tiniest, sweetest little pink blooms, but the fragrance, this flower smells so good that it just, the whole yard smells like that when it's blooming. So it doesn't seem to have hurt it at all once we moved it. This next bed this is our cattle panel arch, one of them you can see right in front of the greenhouse. And on this side, we have some peppers in this end of the bed. But then right through here, we have, these are Minnesota midget melons. They did very well for me last year, maybe the last 2 years. The only problem was, I'd be waiting for that perfect, beautiful cantaloupe and thinking one more day, and then I'm going to pick it. And of course, something would take a big bite out of it. I don't know if it's a turtle or a rabbit or what. But hopefully these growing up the trellis will prevent that. You can see this one right here is just beginning to reach it. Then on this side, I planted Bill Burnett's Chinese okra, and you can see one of them's already climbing up, finding its way up. In the back side of this bed, let me go around there. I have one tomato plant, which is a cream and sausage, one I've grew for many years. It's a little yellow tomato. I think I originally got the plants at Christian Love. Renewed Hope Ministries is the name of it now, here in Murphy. Or in Murphy, not here. And this is purslane growing back here. Just growing wild. This is just, a lot of people consider this a weed. But it's actually one of those superfoods they talk about that is just packed with vitamins. The leaves are kind of fleshy, kind of thick, kind of like almost like a succulent plant. But it has a mild, very nice taste, and we put them in salads. I think you can also cook them, but I've never tried to cook them. But that just grows wild here, and I just let it grow since we like to put it in the salads. It's kind of like one of nature's bonus foods. I'm really excited about this little tree. This is a persimmon tree that Matt got me for Mother's Day. This is, I don't know if this was the best place to put it. It's a dwarf variety, so it shouldn't get too big, but it'll still get large. But it's kind of like we've run out of room where to put stuff. But it's an oriental type persimmon instead of like the wild ones that grow here. You can see the bank up to the woods behind. You can see we've been clearing off. The bank's a constant battle to keep it cleared off. And then you can see the giant brush pile that needs to be burned. Maybe that'll happen this winter. So this is the other end of the arch. On this side we have cucumbers. You can see really taking off up it. I think I have. There's a big one that needs to be picked today. Cucumbers also on that side. Here in front we have some peppers, doing pretty good. This one's really, little guy's really puny. That was the last one I had in the greenhouse. I think I started my peppers too late this year. I'm going to start them much earlier next winter to let them have time to grow. But the cucumbers are loving the trellis, so that's a great thing. In this bed we have, it's full of tomatoes. These are all a Tommy Toe type tomato, a real small salad tomato. They're all the same variety, black cherry. That's our favorite one to grow. They're very prolific. They pretty much, once they start producing, it's almost impossible to get them, to keep them picked. I have some, they're covered in little babies. I don't know if you can see back in there. But none of them are ripe yet. So that's what this bed is. Although I do have a potato plant there growing. It's funny how it got there. We've not grown potatoes since Pap's Big Garden. But I like to put my vegetable scraps into the garden. And I guess that's where I buried some potato peelings. And so a potato has sprung up there. The deer hunter wanted me to pull it up. But I said, no, let's just leave it and see. Maybe it'll grow one potato. You never know. I know Granny's done that in the past as well. This bed down here, this is the asparagus bed that we redid. Again, there's right in the center of it, there's one tiny tomato plant that was left in the greenhouse, and I just stuck it right in the middle. But the funny thing about this bed is, I thought, well, we'll move it, and then we may disturb our asparagus even for the next 2 years. We don't know, you know, since we've pulled it up and changed it around. But the most amazing thing has happened. The asparagus is already coming up again. You can see right there, see a stalk of asparagus. So that's been a pleasant surprise. So we didn't have to even wait. It's almost like we got another chance to eat fresh asparagus this summer. So here's our one remaining big apple tree. We still have the 2 little ones we bought this year. There's a few apples on this one. This is the other cattle panel arch that we made this year. At the end of this bed. Right here we have growing. This is a wild apricot or passion fruit. Chitter planted them in this bed a few years ago, and they've been coming back ever since. Right here's the Malabar spinach that I was so excited about growing. Hopefully it'll start to vine out, and then hopefully we want it to grow up the trellis. On this side, I planted more of the spinach. You can see it's coming right along. Then all the tomatoes in this bed, the rest of the bed's made up of tomatoes, are Cherokee Purples. That's Matt's favorite, the deer hunter's favorite. There may be 1 or 2 where a Cherokee Purple died, and I had to replant it with a Mountain Princess or an Arkansas Traveler. But this is the first time we've ever tried growing tomatoes up the cattle panel, of course, because this is the first year we've had them. But you can see most of them have reached the bottom rung. But these tomatoes are also full of blooms and full of some baby tomatoes. But we don't have any ripe ones yet. Still a little bit too early for us to have ripe tomatoes. Over on this side, you can see there's one of the apple trees, the new apple trees from this year. It's doing very well. Here's one of our blueberry bushes. You can see this one's just loaded this year. This is the only one we have back here, and I can't even, to tell you the truth, remember how it ended up in the backyard. But it's got a lot of blueberries on it. Our latest bed, the newest one we've built, and probably the last one for this summer, is this one right here. Remember I told you I bought the asparagus when I actually found out I didn't actually need it, but it was too late, I'd already bought it. So we built this bed, and this whole end down here has asparagus planted in it. This part right up here, I planted some cucumbers, some flowers, and I found my plum granny seeds, so I planted some of those. And we'll go down to the big part of the garden. First, let's go right over here. This is another cattle panel that we put up. We put this one up because of this grapevine, and then down at the bottom there's a grapevine. Those are two that we've had for several years. They've always produced grapes. The one at the bottom, it was larger. There was two prongs of it. And this year, we thought that it was dead and we were going to pull the whole thing up. But when I got in there and actually started cutting, I realized one piece of it was still alive. So that's the piece that you can see there. And they just seem to love this cattle panel to grow on. This one actually had grapes on it. And I'm not sure that if us moving it a little bit because of adding the cattle panel, or if those cold, those weird cold May days we had, whatever the reason, all the grapes fell off. So I won't have any grapes this year. But again, like the one in the back, just to keep from wasting this extra space near the panel until the grapevines take over, we built this little small bed here. And in it we put more on this end. I've got more spinach barely coming up, more of the Malabar spinach. And then down here I have some butternut squash. And they're looking really yellow, so I don't know, they don't like something about the dirt in that bed, but hopefully they'll continue to grow. And we have more tomatoes right here. These we have in cages, and these are all Arkansas Travelers, and that's a variety that we've grown for several years. It's kind of a medium size, just a red tomato, but really good for canning, or I think it is anyway. Right in the front on this side, and then also on this side, we have two, again, Tommy Toe type tomatoes. These are different than the black cherries. These are, I think, Matt's cherry is the name of them. And you can see that they have a lot of little ones. These will probably be the ones that get ripe the fastest, I would say. So these tomatoes are doing very well. You can see lots of blooms again. A few baby tomatoes, but none ripe. Then in the largest part of the garden is where we have the two main cattle panels, and this is where our beans are growing. We grow greasy back beans. And you can see, I'm sure already, let me get a better view here. You'll notice that out on the end, the beans just took off and they're all the way up to the top. On this end, they're kind of puny looking. That happens every year, and we always forget about it until the next year. It looks like we would do something about it. We need to amend the soil on this end somehow. It's missing something. Eventually, these beans will take off and they will climb and produce. It just takes them much longer than the ones on that end. The deer hunter wondered if it's because he dumps his ashes from the wood stove on that end. I said, well, maybe you need to start dumping them on this end if you think that's what it is, but we really don't know what it is. But you can see the marked difference. All those beans were planted on the same day. Right in front of the beans, we have two rows of okra. You see, these are, and then right behind it, there's another row. That's the row that I swear, I think the first time we planted it, we made the row and didn't put the seeds in and covered it back up, because then the second time we planted it, it all come up. As I get closer, you can see the beans have already reached the top of the cattle panel on this end. They're looking really good. Don't see any blooms. Yeah, I do. I see 2 or 3 blooms on that one right there. So beans before long. In this little bed we have more beans. These are all bush beans. These are blooming, you can see. This is the Yount's bean. If you've not been reading The Blind Pig very long, I'll put a link to it in this post. But that's a bean that we got the seed from one of Matt's friends, the deer hunter's friends that lives in Junaluska, part of Cherokee County. The Yount's bean, and it had been handed down through his family for at least 100 years, probably more like 150 years, because his uncle Alvin told us about it, and he was 90-something years old, and he remembered his mother and father saying that they got it from their grandparents. But it's a bush bean. But not all of our Yount's beans come up this year, so we also planted Kentucky Blue Lake, I think it is, a bush bean, and we've never grown those before, so that's a new thing. I just happen to have the seed. Back in the back, you can see my overgrown flowers. My bee balm this year's unbelievable. It's as tall as I am. Here we have some squash and zucchini. I think there's you can see they're starting to produce. I don't know if you can see the zucchini down in there. For in this part of the garden, this is like mostly where our spring stuff was. So you can see some lettuce and some onions. You can see the radishes. That's the white little bloom there that I've let kind of fall over. This is the first year that I want to try to save my radish seeds, so I've let them go to seed. You can see the seed pods. I've never tried to save radish seeds, so this will be the first time. Over there in the back we have some beets, another squash plant, some watermelon plants. These are cosmos that reseed themselves, these flowers. The deer hunter says they get in his way, but I like to leave them. You can also see a lot of marigolds that have reseeded themselves, that just volunteered. More cosmos, more squash. You can see a little baby squash there. Squash and zucchini. More onions and lettuce back there in the back. I grow Jericho lettuce. I really like it because it stands up to the heat. You can see, well, you can see these two where I harvested these, and now they're growing back. So sometimes you can do that with lettuces that don't bolt easily when it gets hot. So more onions and lettuce. There's a big comfrey plant back there. Here's a Chambers Creek pumpkin that Don Cassida shared the seeds with me several years ago. And actually right in front of it, that's a ground cherry that his brother Jim, he shared ground cherry seeds with me, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And those just kind of volunteer and show up all over the garden once I started them going. These are some winter squash, different varieties. Down through here. Another pumpkin. And this little mound, I think I've planted it 3 times and nothing's come up, none of the times. So I planted it again about a week ago, so I'm not going to try again unless I try this fall. Maybe I could put something in it. But over in the back there we have garlic that's it's blooming, got beautiful blooms. But it's also dying back, needs to be getting to the point it needs to be harvested. Here's the rest of our blueberries are up here in the front yard. Most all of the blueberries that we grow are a late bearing, so you can see they're still pretty green. It'll be August, at least the 1st of August before they're ripe. I do have one earlier bearing blueberry right here. You can see the difference in it. It's already turning pink. I'm not even sure where I got this one. Maybe Hubert Kirkland. He may have given it to me, but I've had it for years. But all the others, and they go on down the road a ways, are the late bearing blueberry. I don't know the name of it. Miss Cindy's friend gifted me with those blueberries almost getting close to 20 years ago, I guess. So I've had them for a long time. My two favorite fruits are blueberries and watermelon. The blueberries I've got under control, but I never have much luck with my watermelons. Maybe this will be the year. But I hope you've enjoyed taking a peek at our garden. If it's something that you did enjoy, maybe this is something that we can do again. Thanks for walking around with me.